see you. So we have, thanks to the Housing Commission, we have great speakers today. Looking forward to hearing from them. Kellen Macbeth, the chair of the Housing Commission, and Alex McMillan, development specialist with the county staff. So without further ado.
Well, we had one request for public comment first. We can't skip public comment.
Yeah, no. That's why we're sending it back to you for public comment. Yep. Okay. Go ahead, Alex.
Is Alice Hogan online?
Yes, I am online, but I didn't have a comment. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you had sent a note saying you had a comment you wanted to make this morning.
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Alice. Is there anyone else that would like to offer public comment? All right, hearing none. Now we can move to the housing spotlight.
Yes, so yeah, thank you very much. And Audrey, do you want to do an introduction or just proceed?
I just want to say to start that I'm really grateful that Kellen and Alex are both here today. I'm going to learn a lot. I hope everyone else is interested in hearing more about affordable housing and housing equity in Arlington. Alex is going to kick us off with a presentation on the different programs that the county has, and then we'll get into a conversation with Kellen about how the Housing Commission and the Commission on Aging can work together to reinforce each other's advocacy and improve the number and quality of affordable housing in Arlington. So I'm going to pass this on to Alex. Alex, if you and Kellen, if you and Alex want to say something else about yourselves, please feel free.
Thank you so much, Audrey, and good morning, everybody. My name is Alex McMillan. I am with CPHD, which is Community Planning, Housing, and Development. Specifically, I'm in the housing division on the development team. So I do a lot of multifamily rental work on the development team. In addition to that, I am the Housing Commission staff liaison. So I work closely with the chair, Kellen Macbeth, who's also on today, to help facilitate the Housing Commission meetings. Kellen, do you want to introduce yourself before I get started?
Sure. Thanks, Alex. And thank you, Audrey, for that intro. And thank you, William, for having us. So my name is Colin Macbeth. I am the chair of the Housing Commission. This is my second year chairing the commission. I've been on the commission since 2021. Prior to that, I was chair of the Tenant Landlord Commission, and I'd been on that body for, I think, maybe 4 years. And then I used to be on the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families back when I first got to Arlington, and I was a teen and while I was in college and then right after. So I've been involved in Arlington County civic life for a while. People may see me wearing different hats in sort of my volunteer life. I'm also the president of Equality Arlington, which is an LGBTQ+ nonprofit advocacy group in the county that just started last year. And I'm also involved with the NAACP, the local Arlington branch, and that housing committee. I used to be the chair of the housing committee for the branch. And then most recently, I was on the board for the Alliance for Housing Solutions, which has now merged with Navaja to focus on regional affordable housing advocacy, and not just Arlington. But yeah, so excited to talk more about how we can work together and kind of what we do and the important role that you all can play in advocating for the needs of senior residents in Arlington. But sure, go ahead and take it away, Alex.
Great, thanks. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. And I assume everyone can see that.
Yes.
Yes, good. Awesome. Okay. We actually recently created a new housing commissioner orientation for those new commissioners that are just coming on. So we've actually just very recently put together this presentation, and we've adapted it a little bit for this group. So I'm really going to kind of go into the basics about our commission, and then step back a little bit and talk about affordable housing in Arlington in general. And then we'll move over to some of the housing items that the Housing Commission discusses and hears. And that should lead us into hopefully the ability to kind of discuss where collaboration may be possible in the future. Real quick, some of the things I'll cover, just the commission basics, the affordable housing in Arlington, planning and zoning, and then some housing commission items. So the commission is all volunteer, county board appointed. It's 13 members, and it's responsible for advising the county board on housing policy issues and funding allocations. And I'll send this PowerPoint out to the group after so that you can click on all the links that I've hyperlinked in the PowerPoint. But we usually are in person, but as we just heard, that policy might change, or has changed, hopefully in the near future. So we'll see about that. But so the mission, the Housing Commission is the chief advisory commission to the county board on housing issues. They serve in a variety of functions aimed at advising the county board on county housing conditions, trends and needs, and developing policy recommendations. I've linked the charter there in case any of you are interested. And then the Housing Commission also has an equity framework, which Kellen led last year in getting that approved. And so it really builds off of that 2019 countywide equity resolution that was passed. Who benefits, who's burdened, who's missing, and how do we know? So I've also linked that there if you're interested in that after the presentation. So affordable housing in Arlington. So why are we here, right? Housing affordability is vital to the social and economic sustainability of our community. And so really all of the Housing Division's actions kind of stem from really that core statement right there. So one big thing I will point out is there's no housing authority in Arlington. So the county does not actually own any affordable housing itself. Instead, what it does is it works with for and nonprofit developers to create and preserve affordable housing by preserving low interest loans, so quite low interest, well below market rate. And the county does not property manage any of that. It is all done by third-party for-profit and nonprofit developers. So looking at the Affordable Housing Master Plan real quick, this is really the key policy document for housing in the county. It was a 3-year housing study that a large group underwent to come up with this document. And it's an analysis of the current and future housing needs. It offers policy recommendations, and it really is how Arlington will respond to the current and future housing needs of the low and moderate income residents, both here now and in the future. And then one thing I do want to point out about this is there are reviews conducted of the Affordable Housing Master Plan every 5 years, just to kind of reevaluate where we are and see, where we need to make improvements. So that was last done in 2022. And then looking at a bigger picture here. So the general land use plan, I'm not sure how familiar this group is with the general land use plan, but it's basically a map of the whole county, and it establishes the overall character, extent, and location of various uses, and it serves as the guide for decision making related to future development. So it has the whole county on there, and it has this key in the bottom right that you see, and it really guides development based on that. So that's one of the big tools that we use when looking at development possibilities going forward across the county. Another piece to that helps guide the county's decision making are area and sector plans. So they're just supporting policy documents for a very specific area within Arlington. I'm sure many of you are familiar with some of them. Clarendon Sector Plan, Crystal City Sector Plan, Pentagon City Sector Plan are all some that very recently were passed. But it really contains area-specific recommendations on things like land use, public space, building design, transportation, historic preservation, community revitalization, and retail. And then the last big policy document that the county and the Housing Commission need to consider is the zoning ordinance, Arlington County zoning ordinance. It regulates all use and development. It addresses things like lot size and coverage, building height, bulk and siting, parking requirements, and the density for each zoning district. So those are kind of the core policy documents that we have to consider. And so now I'll move into really the types of Housing Commission items that we discuss in our meetings, and what we spend a lot of our time on. So the first is the Affordable Housing Investment Fund allocations, or AHIF. So AHIF is the big pot of money that's largely supported by the general fund that the county uses to provide these low interest loans to developers to support the creation and preservation of housing. So the county analyzes the considerations and financing of the AHIF request before giving a recommendation to the county board for funding. So there's always, a county staff presentation, a developer presentation, and then commission discussion. Obviously, one big piece, funds are limited, and the county currently has anticipated financial commitments. So, it isn't an endless pot of money. There's only so many projects that can be funded at one time with the resources that we have. So here's an example of an AHIF allocation, and this is Ballston Station, which I actually just found out last week that the name might be Unity Homes now. But so in June 21, the county approved a loan to APA, which is Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing, which is one of the big nonprofit players in the area here and owns a lot of the affordable housing. But they were loaned a little over $19 million to construct and finance Ballston Station. And Ballston Station, it will be complete actually in about a week or two. They're getting their certificate of occupancy as we speak. But it's going to be an 8-story new construction building, 144 units. All of them are going to be affordable to individuals and families. You can see the area median income index down here, which might be a new term to some of you, but area median index, or the area median income. So 100% would be the very median of the area's income. So 30% is considered very low income, and 60% is considered low income. So as you can see on this chart, it serves all families at very low income to low income in this building. And additionally, it's going to be an affordable building for at least 75 years. And then it was actually at the site of the old CUMC, Central United Methodist Church there in Ballston. And so it was actually an institutional partnership between APA and the church. And so the church is going to have a really nice new church space on the bottom floor. There's going to be a childcare facility on site as well. And then what you see in the rendering there, everything above that ground floor is all the residential units. And so, it meets a lot of the county's housing goals, right? It adds 12 type A accessible units. It's going to add 15 permanent supportive housing units. There's 36 family size units, which is a big county priority to add those 2 and 3 bedroom units. The total development cost for the building is about 71 million. And so as you can see, about 19 million of that was the county's loan to the project. And so it does open hopefully this week, and hopefully leasing gets started up soon. So hope to bring those 144 units online very shortly. So that's an example of an AHIF allocation. And then I will move over to really the second big type of item that we hear, which is site plan projects. So many areas of the county allow an exception to that Arlington County zoning ordinance that we previously discussed through a use permit or site plan process. So these projects are usually asking for a larger building, a taller building, or more density on the site. And in exchange for that extra height and density, there's usually commensurate community benefits. In this case that we're discussing here, it usually is the provision of some sort of affordable housing, either with on-site units or funds or units maybe off-site somewhere else in the county. So the commission weighs the developer's proposals, specifically looking at kind of the housing part of it, and then offers a recommendation to the county board on the site plan. So I'll share an example of that with you all. So one from just last year in September of 23, the Bingham Center / Silver Diner site plan. It's right there in Clarendon. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the site. It's where the old Silver Diner was, the lot, beer garden, 2 office buildings, and an auto repair facility. And the developer proposed to redevelop the site with a hotel and residential buildings and ground floor retail. So there was a county process that went on, but near the end of that process, it does come to the Housing Commission, and the Housing Commission hears the item. So the housing contribution from this site plan was basically $1.1 million for what we consider the base, and then 15%, or sorry, not percent, 15 total CAFs affordable up to 60%. So we got 15 units in this new building, as well as a payment of $1.1 million to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund. So that was the developer's contribution to the county's housing to help them earn that additional height and density at that site. So that's another type of item that we hear at the Housing Commission and consider. And then a few other smaller types outside of those AHIF requests and site plans. We do give input on policies and programs. So some examples of recent policy input that the commission has helped with: Plan Langston Boulevard. That was a process that happened last year. A community planning process for Langston Boulevard. So the Housing Commission was involved in providing feedback during that process. Obviously, the Missing Middle Housing Study, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with in some way, shape, or form. And then the Homelessness Strategic Plan is another area for policy input. Examples of program input would be housing grants or the home ownership programs, which are actually undergoing a study right now. And the county hopes to have some new recommendations for the home ownership programs soon. And then just some other items: legislative priorities, items that the commission thinks are important for affordable housing that the General Assembly should consider, and we would ask the county board to push forward on our behalf. There's budget input. At the March meeting, we'll be discussing the FY25 budget and preparing a letter for the county board on that. And then there's also commission work plans and annual reports that we do for each year. So those are the big items that we discuss and hear at the Housing Commission. And that is the end of my presentation. For now, I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it over to Kellen if you want to jump in. But yeah, that is the presentation.
So Alex,
Sure.
there is one question in the chat. Do you know what the monthly cost of a 1-bedroom at the Ballston location is going to be? Do you have that information yet?
I can get it in 1 second. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, for the presentation. I just wanted to add a couple things to that. One, I wanted to mention another plan that was just approved last summer by the county board that I think is also incredibly important when it comes to housing policy in Arlington. That's the Fair Housing Plan. And so that's something that Arlington County and a lot of other localities in Northern Virginia, as well as DC and some Maryland localities, they were working for at least 2 years, I think closer to 5, to develop a regional fair housing plan with goals for each of the localities that were shared. And then each locality also had individual goals. And I was grateful to be a part of the advisory committee for that effort, and to see the county really take pretty seriously sort of beefing up their fair housing goals and strategies as part of this document. So I think that is also a pretty significant kind of foundational document that's new. And it involves a lot around affordable housing because there's a lot of overlap between fair housing and affordable housing. But it also talks a lot more about doing a better job with enforcing our anti-discrimination laws, doing better outreach when it comes to housing discrimination, which I think in Arlington, elderly status, I think that's how we refer to it, is one of those one of the protected classes or protected characteristics. So that's also sort of a key piece in the housing policy sort of framework. Alex, did you want to talk about the rent for the new building?
Yes. So I have pulled up on the screen here a link to the income and rent limits that you can find on our housing page, but it does break it down by unit size here and then by AMI on the top here, and then the associated rent with that. So those would be the associated rents. I don't actually know what the wait list looks like for that building at the time. I would assume interest is high considering the great location right across from the metro there, right in Ballston. So I assume interest is high. But these are the rents that would be associated with those units.
Thanks, Alex. Also, I want to talk a little bit more about the site plan review process. So that's something Audrey and I have talked about. And I think currently the Commission on Aging is not involved in the SPRC, but that's something that could change. So that's not controlled by the Housing Commission. That's something the Planning Commission is in charge of, and the Site Plan Review Committee is a sort of standing committee of the Planning Commission that the board set up years ago to sort of involve the commissions in the public process to review proposed site plans. And normally they set up specific committees for each of the site plans that applicants, apply for and sort of work their way through the process, which can take quite a bit of time. The Housing Commission is asked to provide representatives for housing related site plan projects. So they have commercial and they have housing. We don't get involved in commercial. The Planning Commission does all of them. We just are involved in the housing ones. But that is probably the best opportunity that we have on the Housing Commission to influence what happens with these projects. And typically that's where, if you're interested in the specifics about the building design, the particular unit mix, if it's a redevelopment of an existing property, that's an opportunity to provide feedback to the applicant about any potential displacement. Okay, we are involved in select SPRCs. Okay, that's great. It is it's more so than the letter that we send to the county board from the Housing Commission. It's, I think, the place where the Housing Commission and the other representatives who sit in the SPRCs, where we have the most leverage to actually make any changes to what's happening at that proposed site. So it is, I would say, like a very important part of what we do. Sometimes challenging because you sign up for SPRCs without knowing when the meetings are, on what day or time, and it can be a little bit challenging logistically, but that's a really critical part of the process, and something for, I guess, the Commission on Aging too, for properties, especially, senior living facilities. I would think your voice would be especially important to make sure that the residents, the senior residents, their specific needs and considerations are being put in practice. And I know you all are working on kind of the was it universal, like, principles for housing projects?
Universal design.
There we go. And it was interesting when Audrey had brought that to me. We had sort of a similar conversation right around that time about a project that was coming for the Housing Commission, and that was at Barcroft. So Barcroft Apartments is the biggest investment in affordable housing that the county has ever made. So the county had provided a $150 million line of credit to Jared Lynch, along with Amazon, who provided, I think, $160 million for that project, to preserve what was market rate affordable, about 1,300 units. And as part of that process, they're going to be redeveloping and rehabbing different aspects of the property. And one of the first rehab project that came before the Housing Commission, I got a little bit frustrated because some of the things that we were looking at and talking about, like adding awnings and sort of covered entrances on the building, sort of directly conflicted with what the historical preservation, like, I guess, commission had requested, which is they didn't want to change the facade and they wanted to keep it as existing and historical as possible. And so from my perspective, thinking about the residents who are actually going to live there and their safety and what's going to be best for them, I was advocating for, you should put awnings and things over the entranceway so people don't slip and fall and hurt themselves or die, because I think that far outweighs any historical benefits of keeping it awning free. And I think that just happened to be one of the things that you all were working on as like a kind of universal design principle for all of our housing buildings, that we should incorporate things like that into the design if we really care about the people who are going to live there. I don't know at the end of the day who ended up winning that fight, if the historical preservation folks were successful and the people who were more concerned about the folks who are actually going to live there were successful. But we made our recommendations, and yeah, I don't know how that ended up going, but I think having the voice of, like, the Commission on Aging involved in that fight, or fights like that, is really important to sort of add to people like the Housing Commission, who are trying to just look at, tenants of any age, what's going to be most impactful for their safety and for their quality of life at buildings, which sometimes other aspects of the county that I think are more focused on other things, like how does the building look when someone drives by, as opposed to, how is it for someone who lives there? What does that mean? It looks like we have a question in the chat. Are there plans to address the increased need of affordable assisted living options for the elderly? That is a great question, and I don't know the answer. If the county has plans for that, I don't know, Alex, if you.
Yeah, I can try to tackle that. So let me share my screen again. So I referred earlier to the Affordable Housing Master Plan, and it is the primary policy document for housing, for Arlington County housing. So there are goals in it, and we do have some goals in there that are specifically, targeted at enabling residents to age in the community. So we do call that out specifically. I would say one of the things I mentioned earlier, the county does not own any public housing or affordable housing, right? So we really work with partners, for-profit partners that approach us, or nonprofit partners, and I know they're both in that space, and that is an opportunity for us to help shape a housing program or a site design. So we are only able to use the tools at our disposal, I will say. And there are property owners do have a lot of rights in the state of Virginia relative to others. So it is hard to address that specifically without people approaching us. I would say one thing that you may have heard about recently, as an example of what the county has done, just in this past week, the county board heard an amendment to the neighborhood's form-based code that would make it easier for assisted or for elder care facilities to be developed on Columbia Pike. So the county found that it was quite hard because of the affordable housing and parking requirements involved with the form-based code for elder care facilities to really work on the Pike. They weren't feasible. They weren't feasible really at all. So the county made that change just recently to incentivize further development, but that kind of is as far as the county can go. It's incentivizing our partners, but it is hard to to take action without having an authority and add to that supply all by ourselves. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think a lot of the specific projects around assisted living, it's really based on the market though. I mean, the county has goals, they're willing to work with developers if they're looking to build something like that, but the county's not gonna, sort of be building it itself. And unless they come up with a specific incentive program, for that type of building, it's really just kind of a wait and see for the private sector to suggest it. Alex, I'm gonna defer to you if you can look up the data for that next question.
Yes.
I did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I actually, this is a great opportunity for that last question in the chat right now. Looking at totals and numbers, I would just love to make this plug, and I'll put this in the link in the chat so that it's easy to find. But this is the affordable housing dashboard that we recently kind of updated and re-released, and it has all the data, everything. So it has 20 pages and it breaks data down, housing supply. It looks at, who is living in the committed affordable units. It gives some more information on the AMI that I was talking about earlier. But, it shows that map with the total. There's currently 11,213 committed affordable units in the county, and it breaks it down by map and, shows there's Barcroft, 1334 units. So it has that breakdown. It has a map broken down by area. Talks about when affordability will expire at certain places. So this has really all the data that we have. So is it broken down by age? That is a good question. Let me see. So I feel like we do have some data on age. Maybe if it's not here, I can get in contact with our data pro in the housing division and see if we have more data I can pull for you on that. The affordable housing dashboard does have a lot of data, so I'll put that in the chat in a second.
And since the budget was just released this weekend, I just want to give a little bit of some context around like our budget advocacy that we do every year. In terms of like overall spending, I think this year the county manager proposed it was like maybe $110 million in spending on housing programs. About 70 something million of that is county spending. The biggest difference, I think, of outside spending comes from HUD for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which serves a lot of very low income and also elderly disabled residents. The county also provides a lot of funding, about $15 million in the most recent budget, proposed budget for the housing grant program. And a lot of our affordable housing programs they work in layers. So we have committed affordable units, but if let's say that's a 60% AMI unit, if you're making less than that, you're going to be rent burdened and you're going to struggle to afford to live there. So most of the people who receive either a housing grant or a housing choice voucher live in a CAF unit. So it's a double subsidy that they're getting in order to afford to live there. Because if you're 30% of AMI, there's very few units that are actually subsidized down to that level. So you're relying on both sort of a tenant-based assistance program, either the housing choice voucher through HUD, which is administered locally through the county, or the housing grant program, which is actually a pretty unique program in the country, to have that robust of a housing voucher program that's locally funded and controlled, and definitely unique within Virginia. And one of the challenges that we have is we have goals that are found in the Affordable Housing Master Plan, and then we don't have nearly the funding to actually achieve those goals. So just about every year we fail to achieve our goals when it comes to affordable housing development within the county. I think advocates have estimated that if we were to actually meet our goals, we would need to be investing about $50 million in AHIF every year. AHIF, the last couple years has been around 20 million, and that's what the manager's proposing for this upcoming fiscal year as well. So that's a huge increase from what it used to be, but it's far short of what it needs to be if we're going to actually meet the goals that we set in 2015. And so that's a perpetual challenge that we have. One of the other challenges is Barcroft being $150 million is very expensive, especially with interest rates increasing. So our debt service for that has gone up a lot. And so a good chunk of AHIF every year now goes to debt service. I think last year it was around $9 million went to debt service for Barcroft and one of, I think, Buckingham, one of the other affordable housing properties that we have. The county took steps during closeout last year and in this proposed budget to try to lower the principal. And they're hoping for, I think, $1 million a year reduction in the cost of our debt service. But the money that goes to that means that we have less money for new affordable housing development or redevelopment projects in the county. Not to say that Barcroft is not incredibly important, because it absolutely is, and I'm very glad that the county did that. But we only have so much money for new projects, and with the increasing cost of constructions and with the high interest rates, it's put a damper on a lot of redevelopment and development efforts because they've just gotten a lot more expensive, and there's less affordable housing investment fund money to go around.
Okay, Kellen, before we go to this next question, there were a couple others that have been missed, so let me just back up and hit those first. The first one is the real estate tax relief review part of the homeownership study. Do you know?
I think it is.
Okay.
I believe it is too. Unfortunately, I'm not super involved with that study. I do believe we already are at the recommendation phase, so I'm not sure if COA could participate at this point, unfortunately.
You
but
guys could get briefed on the recommendations and
Yeah.
provide your feedback on those. I don't know when the plan is to make those public and do the rounds of briefing commissions, but you could definitely request that housing staff brief the commission and provide your feedback on the recommendations that they put together. I think the board was briefed earlier this month on them.
Yeah, I think more will come out this spring and summer about the final recommendations and consideration by the board.
And then one other one, Laura Polari Walvis had, she's interested in learning how affordable housing can be fostered into naturally occurring communities of older adults who can be connected. Wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
That is a good question. When you say naturally occurring communities of older adults, what are we referring to there?
Laura, do
Hi
you want-
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can try to connect. So I feel like there's been efforts to form communities of older adults in affordable housing and they get shut down. And so what's the right way to do it? And how do we see those being fostered instead of opposed?
And are you saying developing new sort of like senior affordable housing projects?
Yes, I think so. I mean, new and also looking for places where it can really be developed further. I'm referring specifically to the development on Jackson Street that wanted to provide housing for older adults and LGBTQ, and was so much opposition to it and saying it wasn't. I don't even know what the status of that is, but I mean that's an example of like here's an effort that I think a lot of people appreciate and would like to see happen, and how can that be encouraged?
So that project is still in the works. It's one I'm very excited about, both for it being affordable senior housing, but also for affordable senior housing that's friendly to the LGBTQ plus community. You're right, the neighbors generally are very, very opposed to it and don't want additional development or density in their neighborhood. I'm not very sympathetic to the arguments that they've made. They've also made a lot of really hateful and terrible arguments and just said awful things. NIMBYism is alive and well in Arlington County and a powerful force, unfortunately. That project, I think, should be coming before the long range planning committee sometime in the next couple months. I know the church was still working with APA to finalize some things on their end before it moved forward in the county process. But I think things that are required for projects like that to move forward is a lot of advocacy and strong support in the community. People telling staff and telling the board that they want to see that happen. Um, and that they want to see that happen in places where it may not be part of a area plan or a sector plan, but that's where the project can happen. That's where they own the land. And I know there's probably a lot of our county planners would hate, that I'm saying this, but you can't just pick and choose based on what someone decided years ago for where development should happen or where the best place is for it. Like especially with churches, they own the land that they own, and that's where they have the opportunity to build. And I think we should foster that as a community and look for ways to support the sort of creative development for more affordable housing. In this case, more a senior affordable housing. I mean, I also think it's kind of ridiculous that we have single family homes like 2 blocks from Clarendon Metro, and they're fighting tooth and nail to preserve that. Like that, those should be denser neighborhoods. They should be taller neighborhoods. One of the challenges that we have in Arlington is that our planning process is very much focused on current neighbors and people who live there today, and not as much focused on who could live there or who's going to live there in the future. You have homeowners who are going to be dead or moved long before a lot of these developments happen, who are controlling what's going to happen for the next 50 plus years in that neighborhood, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Obviously their voice is important and they deserve to have a say, but so is the voice of all the people who would love to live in that neighborhood if it were, to be developed in a different direction. And I think the county is not unique in prioritizing the voice of the people who live there today in all of our planning efforts. But I think we need to do a better job of balancing that with folks who would love to live in those neighborhoods and have never been given the opportunity. So that's my soapbox with our overall planning efforts. But yeah, I think that's an area that, I've been pushing for, and I think a lot of other people are referring to kind of rebalance how we do planning to make sure that we're able to have more diversity and have more folks that previously been shut out of large parts of the county, able to live there and thrive and prosper.
And I'll just add one point there. We do have a proposal in the works right now. I've talked about a lot of our anticipated financial commitments. One of those is Crystal Houses, which is an infill development. And it's a partnership with APA and EYA that the county has entered into. Just this Saturday, an AHIF request went forward for one of the first phase of the first building. There is anticipated to be a senior affordable building component in that project, not delivered in the first phase, but I believe in the second phase. So that is something that the county looks forward to adding that supply. Unfortunately, recognizing it is a few years away from delivery, but that is one project that we have that's going to help add to that supply as well.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, I think one of the challenges we face too is just there's so much need for different populations within the county. It's difficult to address them all. Obviously, we need to do a lot more so that like senior residents can age in place and continue to live in Arlington County and afford to live here throughout their entire age span. But we also have a problem with young families being able to afford to live here. I don't know how many people were part of or watched the coverage of the 2050 visioning process that we had, but one of the key takeaways for me is that Arlington attracts a lot of young people, but then when they get married and they decide to have kids, they leave the county because they can't find housing that's affordable for raising a young family here. So we're losing a lot of those folks, and they're predicting that our population is actually going to decline and has been declining because people are choosing to go to cheaper places as they move from that sort of young professional to like, young family life stage. Um, and I know I see that all the time with my friends and people that I know that they're just like, I love Arlington, but why would I stay here and pay way more than I could for something a lot bigger elsewhere? Um, and I think for myself too, like if I wasn't so invested in Arlington civically, and if I, hadn't spent the last 18 years like really getting involved, I probably wouldn't be here because I could get way more for the same amount of money someplace else. Um, but they've Arlington's kind of trapped me now, like because I'd have to start over again, and I have grown to love the community a lot since I first came here for college.
Thank you both for your time this morning. We really appreciate you being with us and sharing all of this great information. William, did you want to?
Thank you, Ellen. Yes. So yeah, thank you both, especially for your forward-looking perspectives. That's and addressing NIMBYism, which is the enemy of affordable housing, in my view. And we value your expertise, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the future. So thank you very much, and hope to have you back soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you both so much.
So next step, Helen, what is, I guess the next step is.
Next up is the
approval of
January
minutes.
minutes. Yep.
Yeah. So do I have a motion and a second for approval of the January minutes? All right. Audrey.
Yes.
Okay,
Move.
Audrey, motion. Do we have any seconds?
Kathleen.
All right, Kasha, second. Okay. And yeah, so all ayes for approval.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, the minutes are approved. So we're at about 5 minutes, 5 minutes to the hour. I'm going to be very brief on the chair's report and executive committee, and we'll take a 5-minute break just so that if anyone needs it. And then I look forward to hearing from Carlos on the aging, equity, and engagement goals, and of course on the staff reports. So with respect to the chair's report, people always come first. We heard from Jim that due to personal circumstances, he is going off the commission early. And so, of course, we want to thank him for his service. He has made a lasting contribution to all areas of the commission, especially for transportation. We look forward to his continuing to contribute to transportation, especially. And speaking of people, we welcome our 3 new members, and great to see them on screen today. And Kathy and I interviewed 2 new applicants, Peggy Jones and Kristen Johnson, and sent their names and contact information to the committees to reach out to them. And we'll follow up more on that. We also have the budget meeting, as Helen noted, March 4, and the engagement forum on the 18th. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that in Helen's comments. So without further ado, let's take 5 minutes and come back, and then we'll go into staff reports and look forward to hearing from Carlos. Thanks again. How are we doing, everyone?
Hey, William, is everything okay with Jim? I kind of, I heard that he's no longer going forward. Is everything okay with him?
Yes, we can talk offline if you want, but yeah, feel
Yeah,
free to
I'd
reach
like
out.
Yeah,
Feel
I'll
free to
reach
reach out. I'm not
right.
saying that there's anything. Yeah, he wanted to. That's pretty much what I know, and so yeah, feel
That's
free
fine.
to reach out.
I'll reach out.
Let's
Just
also
wanted
respect his privacy. Let's also respect his privacy and not, do this in public. Okay. All right. I think we can get started. Staff reports.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. William stole a few of my talking points, but we'll go through them anyway. So first of all, just a big welcome to Michael, Catalina, and Kasha. This is your first official Commission on Aging meeting as commissioners. So really happy to have you be part of our group and excited to work with you as well. As William mentioned, we did receive notification that Jim is asked to resign his position. He's been with us since December of 2018 and just really has made a tremendous impact on the Transportation Committee. He served for 2 years as the vice chair of the commission. And so just really want to thank him for all of the work that he did. And he will be missed, but glad that he is still willing to stay engaged. I think we'll be seeing him around a little bit anyway. So we do still have two, so that leaves us now with 2 vacancies and then a third opening up at the end of March. So if you know people who would be a good fit, I know Kathy and a couple others are working on a recruitment strategy, but also would encourage any of you, if you have contacts, if you know people who would be a good fit for the Commission on Aging, please do encourage them to apply. If they want to talk to me or to William before they do apply, just let us know. I'm happy to talk to anybody. I'm sure William is as well. Yeah. All right. So next up, staffing within the Agency on Aging. I'm really excited to report that our new part-time nutritionist starts tomorrow. She will be with us 20 hours a week and fulfilling a lot of the state mandated nutrition services for our community. And so her name is Patricia Collins. She's not only a registered dietitian, she's also a licensed counselor. And so I think she's going to be a great asset to the team. It will definitely help her with the nutrition counseling and education function of the role that she has. And so I will bring her to a future meeting to introduce her to all of you, but, very excited that this is finally coming together and she starts tomorrow. The county manager did release his proposed FY 2025 budget on Saturday. And in the follow-up items, I'll send you all a link to that page. We will be holding our budget committee meeting next Monday at 10:30. So that's March the 4th at 10:30. Would encourage so it's a function of the executive committee, and then anyone else who is interested in joining. It is an open meeting, so please feel free to either come in person or to connect remotely. So in this meeting, both Jim Baker, our administrative officer, as well as Jennifer Collins will present an overview of the county manager's proposed budget, really sort of focusing in on the impact to older adults. And so if you're at all interested, I would encourage you to attend this meeting on Monday. And then the DHS work session, which is where Anita Friedman, our department director, will talk to the county board and to the county manager about our specific part of the budget. That is scheduled for March 14th. We are always combined with community planning, housing, and development. So together, our work session is from 3 to 6 p.m. And so that is live streamed from the county board website. And in the past, the chair of the commission has been invited to come and give some comments during that part of the thing. So William and I are working on some talking points and we'll get him set up so that he's ready. Okay. All right. So again, a reminder about the community engagement forum. That will be our next Commission on Aging meeting. The forum itself will be held at Lubber Run from 10 to 12. And then we will have a very abbreviated Commission on Aging meeting immediately following the forum. That should not take more than an hour. Within the community engagement forum itself, again, a reminder, the theme is a roadmap to age-friendly Arlington. The questions that we're developing for the breakout sessions are all focusing in on what is our next 5-year plan for age-friendly Arlington. We do have 2 satellite sites confirmed, one at Culpeper Garden and one at Walter Reed. And then obviously there will also be a virtual auction for those who wish to participate virtually. So I would encourage you to register. There's a link as well as a QR code on the flyer that I sent out. Just let us know, are you attending in person? Are you attending remotely? And, just looking forward to the event this year. I think it's going to be a good one. So William also hinted at some good news coming out of the General Assembly. It is looking, so the General Assembly has passed the updated virtual meeting legislation that would allow us to hold up to 50% of our meetings virtually, which is great news. And currently we're restricted to 25% can be virtual or 3 meetings, whichever is greater. And so once the governor signs, that likely would go into effect July 1st. So hoping that, after the summer break that we take in August, we'll be able to start with this new pattern. But more to come on that as we see what's wrapped into the legislation and how it's interpreted. And then just a reminder that the committees do fall under the existing FOIA rules of needing to meet in person. They will, of course, be adjusted in July if that all works out. But for right now, you are allowed to meet virtually for 25% of your meetings. So that means the rest of your meetings should be in person. You can have the hybrid option for non-members, but you should be meeting in person. William, Kathy, and I met a couple of weeks ago and talked about just really, because there's been a lot of questions about, well, what is the membership of the committee to determine quorum? And I don't think we ever really defined it. So William, Kathy, and I met and we thought, well, we really ought to define the membership of the committee as the commissioners who were on it. It doesn't mean that the work that other attendees who are part of those committees is less valued or anything like that. It's just that, we wanted to set a specific definition so that it made it easier for the chairs of those committees to determine whether they had quorum or not. So if you've got any questions of that, let me know. And then finally, just a reminder also that if your committee is planning a letter to go to the county board, that we need to do a review of those letters before they come to the commission for approval. And so I know of 2 that are in the works right now that we are working through the approval process on, but please be in contact with me if you, and William as well, if you have letters that you're planning to send on behalf of the Commission on Aging, so that we can get those through the process as quickly as possible and to the county board in a timely fashion before they adopt the budget. So, and just a couple other dates on the budget. The public hearing on the budget is April 2nd, and the board adopts the final budget on April 20th. Okay. Any questions for me? Audrey, yeah.
You said that the budget letter, because one of those 2 budget letters, I assume, is the one I sent you.
Correct.
That's working its way through the process.
Yeah.
It has to be voted on. So does that mean it doesn't get voted on until the 18th, or I don't want to wait that long.
So there are options. The executive committee could vote on it and then be brought to the commission, the full commission, or it can be sent electronically to the commission to provide input into the letter. So there are options in between. But I think, like we've talked about, we're targeting the budget letters for the March board meeting, right, which is March 18th. And so So we're working towards.
There's just not a lot of time between the 18th and the 2nd of April.
Well, the 20th of April is the adoption, right? So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we may or may not have a quorum at the 18th meeting, depends on how many commissioners are remote, right?
The 18th meeting being the meeting after the community engagement forum. Yeah, we'll determine that. Yeah, we'll determine that as we get a little closer to that 18th meeting. I'm starting to think about that now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I will turn it over to Maimuna for EDSD updates.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you. I hope that you had a wonderful weekend. I'm really excited that the weather is going to warm up. We had to take it day by day because we could start off with warm temperature and end up with wintry mix. You just never know. But I did hear that it's going to be in the 60s today. So feeling good about that. But just briefly, Helen really covered everything so comprehensively. Thank you, Helen. And we are really excited about the annual Community Engagement Forum, and Helen and the team is working so very diligently to prepare for that. So kudos to Helen and Michelle Thomas and others on the team that are stepping in and stepping up, and all of you, because I know this is our signature collaborative effort and event, and we are trying to reach more communities. And I'm glad to hear about the satellites that are going to tune in. And for us in the division, we're getting ready for a lot of events. One, I just want to mention, let me back up. I had mentioned a few months ago that we were looking to onboard a new commission, a new advisory board with the Department of Social Services and those programs that are under the Department of Social Services. So we kicked off a meet and greet with the new advisory council for the Social Services Board. And those programs are far-reaching across the department. So 2 of our programs, or 3 of our programs that are under social services are Adult Protective Services, Adult Services, and Adult Day. And Adult Day is the, co-located with Walter Reed Senior Center. So for the very first time, we're having an advisory board that really focuses and gives a lot of attention and advocacy. So we had a meet and greet. There are a total of 7 advisory council members, and their meetings will be bi-monthly and start March. So just really close. This week March will begin. So we're looking forward to it. And we really tried to keep an eye out towards equity, racial equity and diversity and inclusion, making sure that we recruited people that have lived experiences, whether it be with caregiving, adult day, adult protective services, adult services, and then some of the other social services programs under child and family and economic independence. So at some point, I think it would be nice. We haven't done the elections yet, and we don't have a chair yet. We're just in the infancy. But at some point, I would like to introduce the chair to the Commission on Aging, because I think that there could be some synergy and some collaboration, since those programs are focused on older adults as well and are under the division. So stay tuned for that. But I just wanted to report out that they have been appointed and we are meeting. And then in terms of the rest of the division, I know that you're looking to really focus on behavioral health and having that perspective with the Commission on Aging, which is great. We have our RAF dementia program that just turned 1, and they turned 1 in January. This program is totally funded by the Department of Behavioral Health Services on the state level, but it is regionally, we administer it in Arlington, but it crosses over all caregivers within Northern Virginia that are living with someone with a neurocognitive condition. So this program has been able to reach over just about 100 caregivers in their first year. And they're looking to reach more. And what's unique about this program is individuals living in their home, so not institutionalized. And the individual can be a client of the RAF dementia program, or their caregiver can be the client. And they're purely educational. They do outreach. They do linkages to resources and services. They are short-term. And they do a lot of presentations. So if you are part of a network and you feel that the RAF dementia program, just to talk about the services and resources that they have received certifications to be dementia practitioners. So if you know of a network where you would like them to present and learn how to make a referral, I will drop their link in the chat so that we can really increase the number of people we're serving, because we know that caregivers are struggling out there. We also, a part of this program has 3 respite beds. And these beds, as long as the individual becomes a client, they would have access to this respite bed at no cost to them. Now, be short term, but it gives the individual, as you know, the caregiver, some relief so that they could focus on the other task. And there are always, tasks to be managed as a caregiver, even just applying for benefits, for example, not having the time to do so. This respite bed could be an option. Now, right now, the respite beds are far away. They are in Loudoun County. We're trying to work on one in Fairfax, so that is a stretch for say if we are reaching an Arlington caregiver. So it's still, it's still growing. So the first year was a startup program from the ground up. So I'll drop information in the chat for you all to learn more, and please help me with the outreach. It is a significant program that we are very excited about growing. And then our RAFT clinical program, we are also looking to build that program of partners, long-term care partners that can respond to the behavioral health needs that we know is also growing amongst older adults in assisted living and nursing homes. More information, I can provide that as well. And then our developmental services, we're getting ready to do a major event. I think that's in March. I'll have to check the date. And there's a viewing. Helen, am I correct on that? Okay.
Yeah,
And
it is
so-
in March. Yep.
Okay, so we'll want to drop information about that unless you've already shared that with the Commission on Aging so that you're aware. I think it's a documentary that they're going to view, and then they're going to have a panel discussion. And that will be great for you all to join, or anyone that's interested. So that's all I have really from the behavioral health side of the house, of the aging and disability services. I'm doing a lot of outreach to some of our long-term care. I'm really looking at having an emergency respite placement bed. So fingers crossed that by June, I will have be able to secure that. So the idea is for anyone that's needing an emergency placement, an older adult who is in crisis and their family member, we could at least have them in one of our long-term care communities as a partner so that we can work on a long-term care plan, but it would be a short-term placement. So I'm in quite a few conversations about that, and I hope to have more news about that later. Kasha, I know you're one of our champions around this topic, and I'm not surprised that your hand went up.
Mamuna, can you tell us
Yeah.
the short-term placement? How long is that in duration? Are
We're
we talking
looking
like
at
30 days, a week?
90 days.
90 days. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and thank you for your partnership around this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you
Thanks
all so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Helen, do you have any follow-ups after Maimuna? If not, we will continue on to the age-friendly and the committee updates.
Let's just continue on. Thank you.
All right.
I did just
go ahead.
post the date and time for that documentary event. I Am Able is the name of it. So it's March 21st at 6 p.m.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Carlos had to step off. Roland, Carlos said you will be providing us an update on aging, equity, and engagement goals, and we're looking forward to it. So the floor is yours. Thank you. Do we have Roland?
Roland, you're muted.
And while we're waiting, after Roland, we'll have some time for other committees to update any updates that you want to give on age friendly. And so we appreciate that.
Roland, are you able to unmute yourself? I know you're on the phone.
Okay, well, while we're waiting, I'll just give a brief update on the transportation goals and activities. So Jim led an outreach and a briefing from the WMATA board. We had one of the board members as well as the manager of Metro Access present. So just like everyone, Metro is having some funding limitations and potential for cuts to Metro Access, which provides service to older adults, especially those who cannot use a regular Metro bus, Metro rail. And so Catalina had taken the lead in preparing a letter to the board to advocate for the board to then advocate for keeping funding for Metro Access. So wanted to report on that. And our goals and objectives for age friendly are basically in two areas. One is service, to make sure that service in terms of bus and rail, especially on-time pickup for Metro Access is maintained and to the extent possible improved. And Metro Access has, they have great information and provided us an update, and it was really an excellent presentation. And the other part is, of course, safety, not only safety for vehicle injuries and deaths, but walking, sidewalks, etc. So those are the Transportation Committee's objectives and goals. Do we have any update on
so I think Roland has rejoined us and is unmuted now. So Roland, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, fantastic. I'm awful sorry about that. I've been encountering all sorts of problems in getting into Microsoft Teams, and then I figured, well, since I can't do that, I'll just go ahead and call in. And then I'm encountering problems with the phone. Thank you, everyone, for being very, very patient. Carlos and I have met, and we have been considering the age-friendly goals and objectives. And essentially, what we have come up with are 3 basic themes for now the Aging Equity Committee. The first theme is that of visibility. And the objective here would be to increase our essential capacity to elevate critical issues to older adults aging in place through no less than 3 communication strategies. So we pretty much reduced that to 3. Our goal is to sort of leverage some of these opportunities for older adults to enhance their digital footprint. The second theme is that of partnership. And here our objective is going to be to create and implement at least 2 regional initiatives that strengthen partnership opportunities and cultural responsiveness towards aging equity. And in that particular regard, to be a little bit more specific, we'll be working with entities such as the Out and About Task Force that advocates and defines policies for the development of LGBTQ older adult programs and initiatives. And then the third theme is that of sustainability, which here the objective is to just identify no less than 2 opportunities that sustain strategic initiatives for aging equity. And we have essentially 2 goals there. One is to research and pursue in partnership with local private, nonprofit, and governmental partners opportunities to leverage and secure resources that sustain aging equity initiatives. And the second goal there is to define regional opportunities to support efforts that elevate the awareness and visibility of critical issues related to making equity, aging equity possible. Now, we have met and we have considered some various projects. And one of the things that we have done is we have met to discuss how to implement some of these tasks in partnership with other organizations so that we can avoid duplication of services and efforts. Another update matter is we're developing private donor groups to address the needs of older LGBTQ adults in collaboration with the Arlington Community Foundation. And a third update is that we are working with Aging Matters, and we're working with Seabury Resources for a podcast on affordable housing for all. So that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you, Roland. Do we have any questions, comments? All right, seeing none, I am going to see if any of the other committees would like to provide any updates. So legislative committee, do we want to give any updates?
Hey, William, this is Anthony. As we all know, and I think Helen, alerted to some of the what we're doing. The 6 NVAN priority items. The General Assembly is in full swing right now. Things are at different stages, but everything's progressing very well. That's really kind of the general update right now. Our members are actively supporting the process as it goes through. So where it's needed, we're offering support during some of the subcommittee meetings. So I hope to have a more solid update with some good news at the next meeting, but as of now, everything's still in progress on those 6 NVAN items. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Do we have any questions for Anthony?
Can I just add a comment as well to the group?
Yes, please.
So April is the annual NVAN brainstorming for the next platform. So now is a good time to start thinking about what items we might want to put on the table for NVAN to consider to be part of their either legislative or budget priorities. So, if you have ideas for things that we want to really push through the General Assembly next year, I would encourage you to reach out to Anthony or to reach out to me, and we can certainly throw them on the table as part of the brainstorming for the next session.
Yeah, I want to underline that NVAN is a great group, and I know that our members have participated, and for our new members, just want to tell you that it's a coalition of 5 communities, 5 counties. So it's Arlington Commission on Aging, Alexandria Commission on Aging, Fairfax Commission on Aging, Prince William Commission on Aging, and the Loudoun Commission on Aging. So as you all know, there's strength in numbers, and it's a very welcoming group. I started actively participating last year and on electronic meetings in particular. And so as Helen noted, in April, there's a brainstorming session. You can put in whatever your recommendation is, the group will discuss, vote on, and then of course they have a great website. It's a very data-driven organization, very professionally run, and there's a legislative breakfast, I believe, in the spring, and it has a lot of credibility, has gotten a lot of legislation passed, and I encourage you to be actively participate, Commission on Aging is you, and also collaborating with other entities, and NVAN is a great and powerful, credible organization, and encourage you to be a part of it. And it's very welcoming, and reach out to us. So Anthony, thank you very much, and Helen, thanks.
Yep, and the breakfast is scheduled for, it's always in the fall, William, and it's scheduled for September 20th. So,
okay. Great breakfast, no cost to you. All right, Audrey, do you want to give any updates on housing? Great presentation and guest speakers, by the way.
Yes, I just 2 quick things. We're meeting with 4 board members, 2 this coming week and 2 next week, to talk about older adults, and we are going to bring up things like the Clarendon Jackson Street development, and hope we get their support. And we are one of the 2 groups that provided a budget letter, so I would encourage any of you who are interested to do the same. So that's it from me.
Okay, thank you. All right, long-term care. Charlie, do you or another member want to provide an update?
Yeah, we met just a few weeks ago. I can't remember the exact date. We, besides the regular updates on what's going on in Ombudsman program, the health department, and our liaison, we focused a bit on looking at the age-friendly long-term care nursing home proposal, which has 3 goals and a number of objectives, which I won't go over now. You've heard me kind of give an overview of those in the past. I'm happy to answer questions about them, but that was mainly our focus. We hope to move that forward with the age-friendly plan.
Okay, thank you. All right, and healthcare. We want any update on healthcare? I know a couple.
I can provide. I can provide an update, William. Thank you. Yeah. So the Health and Wellness committee met last week. We had a productive meeting to kind of flesh out our goals and objectives with more specifics around the tasks, time frame, expected outcomes, etc. So we're moving forward. I think we're probably going to do some consolidation because we have 5 goals. We have kind of an ambitious set of goals and objectives, but we are moving forward with the with the aim to get this finalized by, now we have a clear deadline from Cynthia from the task force on finalizing everything by March 25th, but with the understanding that over time things will get tweaked over the 5-year period. But also looking forward to discussion, of the health and wellness issues at the community forum, which I think will be great to kind of bring this forward, to hear from older adults, throughout the county about their thoughts on this too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do we have any?
And we have one around mental health, and Maimuna, definitely want to touch base with you, I think, around the RAF program. I think there's some ways that we could work together there to get the word out. It sounds like that's a goal of yours.
All right. Do we have any questions, comments for any of the committees which have provided updates? Did I miss anybody? I know
looks like Kate wants to share.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Kathy's update that we've also identified as one of our upcoming action steps is to reach out to the new executive director at the Arlington Free Clinic, and we will be inviting her to a future committee meeting, and certainly welcome anyone else that wants to listen in on that conversation. But that's one of our kind of immediate outreach steps.
Yeah, great. Thanks to everyone for all the great speakers and sharing information and learning all the resources that are out there, because we're not alone, and we're always stronger when we partner with our counterparts within and outside the Arlington County. So
and William, just wanted to also mention that Kasha is a new member of our committee and will be joining our next meeting, hopefully. The March 6th, I think, is when we've scheduled it.
Okay, perfect.
So I look forward to having you involved, Kasha.
I will be there.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And for the new members and for everyone, of course, we want you to be, active in at least one committee, and also be a participant in a second committee, because all your, energy, enthusiasm is very important. And, we all want to get input from our colleagues and, make sure that we're heading down the right road. Did I miss anyone? All right. So our next portion is old business, new business, and announcements. Do we have any other old business? All right. Any new business anyone has and wants to bring up? Do we have any announcements? In my office, we call these rumors, but anyway, we don't want rumors. But any announcements that anyone cares to make? Let me just add that we welcome our 3 new members, and we also wanted to thank Jim for his contributions. The Commission on Aging is us, and so we really appreciate all your energy working together within the commission and with our counterparts outside. And to the extent that I or Helen or anyone else can make your job easier, please reach out, and I'll certainly reach out definitely to the new members and also to the veteran members as well. And of course, anyone who's interested in leadership opportunities in each of the committees, keep me updated, talk to your committee chairs. And unless there's anything else, Helen, is there anything else that we need to cover? Otherwise, I am going to return the rest of the time back to you guys.
Great. Thanks, William. Thanks, everyone, for your time this morning.
Yeah. See you at the Community Engagement Forum. Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you.